Why do we ignore red flags? I think the simplest answer is that our egos make it more difficult for us to admit that we were wrong, especially when it's regarding someone that we once felt so strongly about. We all want to believe that we're a good judge of character, but more than that, there are inherent tendencies that our minds will always be subjected to. And even though we can't necessarily avoid them, we can catch them in action when they're playing an unhealthy role in our decision making. When it comes to ignoring red flags, I believe these are the three main mind traps that often cloud our discernment: the halo effect, confirmation bias, and sunk cost fallacy. At the start of most relationships, everyone is on their best behavior. The cocktail of chemicals like dopamine and oxytocin makes everything your partner does seem adorable, amazing, perfect. And all their seemingly positive traits creates a halo so bright that you don't even notice any of their flaws. However, as the intoxication wears off over time, the red flags become more obvious. And now that you're faced with a much harsher reality, you need to reconcile it with what you originally felt. Now you're in a constant search for evidence that supports the positive judgment you formed earlier on, and overlooking anything that contradicts it. At this stage, you may even start to romanticize actions that you once saw as the bare minimum, desperately scouting for whatever can be used to convince yourself that they're just as perfect as you remembered. But that can only last so long. And at some point, it becomes quite clear that things are truly not the best. But how could you possibly leave now after everything you've been through together? For me, this is the worst of the three mind traps, because at this point, we're not even in denial anymore, but we're still choosing to settle. Our natural aversion to loss makes us feel like we'd be better off just staying. This is where we need to remind ourselves that when you shrink yourself to accept what you don't deserve, you lose much more than you would waiting for someone that sees your full worth and treats you accordingly. I'll be going into more details on this and many other topics on my Substack, so feel free to follow me there if you're more of a reader or just generally interested in more of my posts. Bye!